Welcome to the channel, The Coins Explorer. Have you ever looked at a simple 1-cent coin in your pocket and wondered if it could secretly be worth more than houses, mansions, or even entire cities? Because today we are diving into one of the most shocking and viral stories in coin history, the legendary 1982 USA 1-cent coin, a coin most people overlook, spend without thinking, or leave forgotten in jars. Yet in rare circumstances, this tiny copper-colored piece has been rumored, discussed, and studied as one of the most valuable pennies ever connected to American numismatic history, with a face value of just 1 cent but an astonishing potential worth reaching an unbelievable $436 million, making it one of the most talked about modern-era coins among collectors, historians, and treasure hunters. And the reason this coin has created such massive buzz is because 1982 was one of the most complicated, chaotic, and transitional years in U.S. mint history, when everything about how pennies were made suddenly changed forever, creating a perfect storm of errors, experimental strikes, wrong planchets, transitional metals, and undocumented anomalies that still fuel speculation today. Because in 1982 the United States Mint officially shifted from traditional copper pennies to zinc-based pennies coated with copper, meaning that two completely different metal compositions were being produced at the same time. And not only that, but pennies were struck at multiple mints, including Denver marked with the D mint mark. And during this period dies were swapped, planchets were mixed, machines were recalibrated, and human error became unavoidable, which is exactly how legendary coins are born, because collectors later discovered that there were not just one or two varieties, but multiple types of 1982 pennies, including large date and small date designs, copper composition and zinc composition, and coins struck under unusual pressure or weight conditions. And among all of these varieties, the 1982 D penny stands out as one of the most mysterious, because officially the Denver Mint was not supposed to strike copper pennies late into the transition, yet evidence suggests that a very small number may exist or may have existed as test strikes, mule strikes, or accidental carryovers from earlier copper planchets. And if a genuine 1982 D copper penny exists with verified weight, metal content, die characteristics, and mint mark placement, it would represent one of the greatest minting anomalies of the modern era. And this is where the staggering valuation enters the conversation, because in the world of high-end numismatics, rarity combined with historical importance can push prices beyond imagination, especially when a coin challenges official mint records and forces experts to rewrite history. And collectors know that coins like the 1943 copper penny or the 1944 steel penny reached astronomical values not because of age alone, but because they should never have existed in the first place. And the same logic applies here, because a confirmed 1982 D copper penny would mean the Denver Mint struck a coin that contradicts known production data, making it a once-in-a-generation discovery. And when rumors of such a coin surface, auction houses, museums, and elite collectors pay attention immediately, because the value of a coin is not just in the metal but in the story it tells, the controversy it creates, and the doors it opens into forgotten chapters of minting history. And the reason some experts attach mind-blowing numbers like $436 million to this coin is not because every 1982 D penny is valuable, but because the hypothetical existence of a perfect, fully authenticated, error-free yet historically impossible specimen would ignite bidding wars among billionaires, institutions, and private collectors who want exclusivity above all else. And imagine owning the only known coin that proves the U.S. Mint made a mistake no one was supposed to see, a coin that rewrites textbooks, appears in documentaries, and becomes the centerpiece of the numismatic world. And when you consider how many pennies were produced in 1982 and how many were melted, lost, or spent, the odds of finding such a coin become almost mythical. Yet collectors continue to search, because history has shown time and time again that impossible coins do surface decades later in old collections, estate sales, or forgotten rolls. And this fuels the viral obsession with checking every 1982D penny. Because even if the odds are 1 in hundreds of millions, the reward would change lives instantly. And beyond metal composition, there are other error possibilities that elevate value, such as double die obverse, misaligned dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchet strikes where a penny is struck on a foreign or experimental blank, incorrect mint mark punches, weak or missing details caused by die fatigue, or even coins struck with extraordinary pressure creating unusual surface texture. And while most of these errors add thousands or tens of thousands in value rather than millions, the ultimate combination of a transitional error, wrong metal, Denver mint mark, perfect preservation, and verified provenance is what pushes the conversation into record-breaking territory. And the fascination with the 1982D penny is also amplified by how accessible it feels, because unlike ancient gold coins or rare colonial pieces, this is a modern coin that millions of people handled, which makes the dream feel possible. And that is why viral videos, forum discussions, and coin hunting channels continue to spotlight it as a symbol of hidden wealth, reminding viewers that history sometimes hides in plain sight. And whether or not a $436 million example ever officially surfaces, the legend itself has already cemented the 1982D 1-cent coin as one of the most searched, discussed, and hunted pennies in the world, inspiring new generations to learn about minting processes, metal compositions, and the incredible impact of small mistakes. Because even if you never find the ultimate unicorn coin, understanding why it could exist turns every ordinary penny into a potential piece of history. And this is why people keep checking dates, weighing coins, listening for the sound of copper versus zinc, and sending suspicious pieces to professional grading services. Because the next discovery could be the one that proves the legends true. And stories like this remind us that value is not always obvious, that something dismissed as worthless can become priceless under the right circumstances, and that curiosity itself can be rewarding. So the next time you see a 1982D penny, don't rush to spend it. Take a closer look, because history has shown that the smallest details can carry the biggest surprises. And if you love discovering hidden treasures, shocking coin values, and mind-blowing history just like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another incredible coin story hiding in plain sight. Next, 1974D 1-cent Lincoln penny. Today, you are about to dive into one of the most shocking and fascinating penny legends ever discussed in American coin history, because we are talking about the 1974D 1-cent coin, a small copper-colored piece that most people would overlook without a second thought. Yet under the right circumstances, and with the right combination of minting mistakes, metal anomalies, and historic production quirks, this single penny has been whispered about in collector circles as a potential $375 million treasure, a value that sounds impossible until you begin to understand how error coins, rarity, demand, and historical context collide to create once-in-a-lifetime collectibles. And as we explore this story together, imagine the excitement of realizing that something so ordinary could carry such extraordinary potential. The 1974D Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint during a time of immense change and pressure in U.S. coinage, when rising copper prices, experimental metals, high-speed minting, and massive production demands created the perfect storm for errors and mistakes to slip through unnoticed. And while hundreds of millions of these pennies were produced, it is precisely that overwhelming volume that made quality control challenges more likely, opening the door for rare anomalies that today fuel staggering valuations. One of the most important factors behind the legendary value claims of the 1974D cent lies in off-metal errors, particularly the possibility of the coin being struck on an experimental or incorrect planchet, because during the early 1970s, the U.S. Mint was actively testing alternatives to copper due to soaring metal costs. And if a 1974D cent were struck on a leftover aluminum, bronze alloy, or even a transitional planchet intended for another denomination, the coin would instantly become one of the most significant mint errors ever discovered, as transitional and wrong planchet errors are among the most coveted rarities in numismatics, sometimes bringing 7 or 8 figures on their own, and when paired with pristine condition and verified provenance, their value can escalate beyond conventional limits. Another powerful contributor to the potential $375 million valuation is the possibility of a unique double die obverse or reverse combined with other major errors, because while many double dies are subtle and common, a dramatic hub doubling that affects the date, mint mark, and key design elements like Lincoln's profile or the lettering can transform a penny into a museum-level artifact, especially if the doubling is bold, clearly separated, and accompanied by secondary errors such as die, cracks, cuds, or misalignment, creating a one-of-a-kind combination that collectors may never see again. Adding even more intrigue is the concept of mint mark anomalies, since the D mint mark on Denver cents during this era was punched into the die by hand, meaning misplaced, repunched, tilted, or even doubled mint marks were possible, and while many repunched mint marks exist, an extreme or previously undocumented D mint mark variety could dramatically elevate desirability, especially if it is paired with other major errors and verified by top grading services. Weight anomalies also play a critical role in identifying ultra-valuable 1974 D cents, because a coin that deviates significantly from the standard 3.11 grams of copper cents of the era may indicate an off-metal strike, incomplete alloy mix, or planchet contamination, and these subtle differences are often the key to uncovering coins that were never meant to exist, coins that slipped through the system during periods of experimentation and transition, and once authenticated, such anomalies can ignite bidding wars among elite collectors, institutions, and private investors seeking the rarest examples available. Surface errors and strike anomalies further expand the list of possibilities, because a 1974 D cent could exhibit dramatic off-center strikes, broad strikes without a retaining collar, multiple strikes where the coin was struck more than once in misaligned positions, or even struck through errors where foreign material was pressed into the surface during striking. And while many of these errors are collected individually, a specimen that combines several of these features in a visually striking and well-preserved form becomes exponentially more valuable, especially when no comparable example is known. Die state errors also contribute to the legend, because late-stage dies can produce coins with massive cracks, retained cuds, or even missing portions of the design, and when such dramatic die failures occur on a date and mint already associated with experimental conditions, they take on an added layer of historical importance, essentially capturing a moment of mechanical breakdown at one of the busiest mints in the country. Condition is another critical factor that cannot be overstated, because even the rarest error coin can lose significant value if it is heavily worn, damaged, or improperly cleaned, whereas a 1974 D cent that displays all of these extraordinary characteristics while remaining in near-perfect mint state condition would be almost unimaginable, a coin that defies odds not once but repeatedly, surviving minting, circulation, and decades of handling without losing its original surfaces or detail. The $375 million valuation also reflects the idea of uniqueness, because in the highest tiers of numismatics, value is no longer driven by metal content or even traditional rarity alone, but by whether a coin stands alone as the only known example of its kind, and if a 1974 D cent were confirmed as the sole surviving specimen of a specific experimental strike, especially one never officially acknowledged by the U.S. Mint, it would instantly become a cultural artifact as much as a collectible, drawing interest not only from coin collectors, but from museums, historians, and investors worldwide. Historical timing amplifies this effect, because the 1970s marked a turning point in American coinage, a decade of inflation, metal shortages, and rapid technological change, and coins from this era that reveal behind-the-scenes experimentation provide tangible evidence of decisions that shape modern money, making them priceless windows into history. The psychology of collectors also fuels astronomical values, because elite buyers are not simply purchasing an object, they are securing prestige, ownership of a story that no one else can claim. And when multiple high-net-worth collectors compete for a singular piece, price ceilings dissolve, replaced by emotion, legacy, and the desire to own something that will be remembered long after money itself changes form. Authentication and certification are the final gates that transform rumor into reality, because any claim of a $375 million penny must withstand microscopic analysis, metallurgical testing, and verification by the most respected grading authorities in the world. And while many coins are dismissed along the way, the few that pass every test emerge not just as collectibles but as legends, redefining what is possible in the hobby. This is why collectors are encouraged to examine their 1974 D cents carefully, checking weight, magnetism, strike quality, alignment, surface texture, and design details, because while the odds are slim, history has shown again and again that extraordinary discoveries often come from the most ordinary places, from jars of change, inherited collections, and forgotten boxes tucked away for decades. The story of the 1974 D1 cent is not just about money, it is about curiosity, patience, and the thrill of discovery, the idea that hidden within everyday life may be artifacts of immense significance waiting for the right eyes to recognize them. And as you continue exploring the world of coins, remember that knowledge is the most powerful tool of all, because the more you learn about errors, mistakes, and minting history, the closer you come to uncovering the next unbelievable find. And this is why we share these stories, to inspire, educate, and remind you that sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest secrets. Today, where hidden history, shocking values, and unbelievable pocket change discoveries come alive. Because in this video we are diving deep into one of the most mysterious modern Lincoln cents ever discussed, the 1984 D1 cent coin that has sparked legendary rumors, collector debates, and eye-popping valuations reaching as high as $215 million when the right combination of minting errors, preservation, rarity, and collector demand collide. And while that number sounds unbelievable, the story behind why a simple copper penny from Denver could even be whispered about in the same breath as 8- or 9-figure prices is rooted in the strange and chaotic nature of the U.S. Mint during the early 1980s, a time when the nation was transitioning materials, updating equipment, and unknowingly creating some of the most fascinating errors in American coinage history. Because by 1984 the Lincoln cent was officially struck in copper-plated zinc, but the Denver Mint was still dealing with leftover copper alloy planchets, experimental dies, worn hubs, and high-speed presses that were producing coins at massive volumes, which opened the door for dramatic mistakes including doubled dies, off-metal strikes, wrong planchet errors, die deterioration doubling, missing mint marks, rotated dies, broad strikes, and transitional composition errors that collectors today obsess over. And the most famous error associated with the 1984 D cent is the extreme double die obverse that shows one of the strongest hub doubling effects ever seen on a Lincoln cent, particularly noticeable on the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust," where the doubling is bold, separated, and unmistakable even without magnification, making it one of the most visually striking modern double dies in existence. And while thousands of regular 1984 D pennies exist, only a microscopic fraction display this dramatic hub doubling combined with perfect strike quality, full copper plating, and pristine uncirculated or proof-like surfaces, which is where the insane valuations begin to enter the conversation, because when collectors imagine the ultimate specimen, they envision a coin struck on the wrong metal, possibly a leftover copper alloy blank from pre-1982 production, paired with the strongest double die known for the year. Flawless mint red surfaces, no plating blisters, no zinc exposure, no post-mint damage. An absolute top-tier grading, and in a hypothetical private sale scenario where billionaires compete for a once-in-a-lifetime error that may never surface again, values can explode into the hundreds of millions based on rarity mythology, registry competition, and the story factor that drives elite numismatics, and beyond the double die. The 1984 D cent is also associated with dramatic die deterioration doubling caused by overused dies that created thickened letters and distorted features. Sometimes confused with true doubled dies, but still collectible in their own right when extreme. And then, there are off-metal errors where zinc cores were improperly bonded, creating partially plated coins or exposed zinc errors that oxidize in bizarre ways. And even rarer are the rumored wrong planchet strikes where a 1984 D cent may have been struck on a bronze planchet, an aluminum experimental blank, or even a foreign planchet, each of which would be a mint error of historic importance. Because by the mid-1980s, the mint was aggressively experimenting with compositions and alloys to cut costs, and any coin escaping with undocumented materials becomes a numismatic ghost that collectors dream of discovering in circulation. And the Denver Mint's high output that year means dies were pushed far beyond ideal limits, increasing the likelihood of clash marks, cuds, die breaks, and retained cuds that create dramatic raised blobs of metal on Lincoln's portrait or along the rim, turning a 1-cent coin into a sculptural error piece. And when all these possibilities are combined with the psychology of rarity, the fame of the Lincoln cent series, and the cultural obsession with pennies worth fortunes, it becomes clear how a narrative forms around a coin like the 1984 D cent reaching unimaginable values under extreme circumstances, because numismatics is not just about metal, it is about stories, survival rates, and competition among collectors who want to own the most legendary example known. And that is why you should always check every 1984 D penny carefully, because even a coin that looks ordinary at first glance could hide doubling, plating anomalies, off-center strikes, or die damage that transforms it from spare change into a historical artifact worth far more than anyone ever imagined. So as you go through jars, rolls, and collections, remember that the next record-breaking discovery often comes from the most overlooked coins. And if this kind of hidden treasure excites you, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and keep watching because the next penny we uncover might change everything. Next, 2014 D1 cent USA coin. A story that proves even a simple penny from your pocket could secretly be a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Because in this video, we are diving deep into how an ordinary-looking 2014 D1 cent has been rumored, discussed, and speculated to be worth as much as $232 million due to extreme minting errors, rare production mistakes, and unique circumstances that turned a mass-produced coin into a legendary what-if of the coin-collecting world. And as we explore this incredible possibility, it's important to understand that modern coins are often overlooked, dismissed, or spent without a second thought. Yet history has repeatedly shown that errors don't care about dates, metals, or expectations, and the 2014 D penny is a perfect example of how a combination of human error, mechanical malfunction, planchet anomalies, and die mistakes can converge into something so rare that collectors, investors, and historians are still talking about it years later. Because while millions of 2014 D pennies were struck at the Denver Mint, not all pennies are created equal, and in rare circumstances a single coin can escape the mint with multiple catastrophic errors that should never have passed inspection. Errors so dramatic that if authenticated and unique they could shatter every modern penny record ever known. And the first major factor that fuels the staggering $232 million valuation is the possibility of a wrong planchet strike combined with a transitional metal error, because 2014 pennies were supposed to be struck on copper-plated zinc planchets, yet the U.S. Mint has a long history of accidentally striking coins on leftover, experimental, or foreign planchets, And if a 2014 penny were struck on a solid copper planchet intended for earlier decades, or even a bronze alloy never officially authorized for circulation, the metal composition alone would instantly make it one of the rarest modern coins in existence, especially if metallurgical testing confirmed it as a unique or experimental alloy that never entered public records. And when collectors hear the words undocumented composition, the value discussion moves from thousands to millions instantly. But that's only the beginning, because the most valuable error scenarios involve stacking multiple mistakes on a single coin, such as a wrong planchet combined with an off-metal strike, where the coin shows abnormal weight, unusual color, and magnetic anomalies that defy standard mint specifications, and when such a coin also displays visible surface distortions, weak details, or improper bonding of the copper plating, it raises red flags that something went terribly wrong during production. Another critical element is the possibility of a double strike or multiple strike error, where the coin was struck more than once by the dies, but failed to eject properly, resulting in overlapping designs, misaligned portraits, distorted lettering, or even partial ghost images of Lincoln's profile. And if a 2014 penny were found with a dramatic rotated double strike or a flip-over double strike showing both obverse and reverse designs misaligned, collectors would already consider it museum-worthy. But add to that a dramatic off-center strike of 50% or more, and suddenly the coin becomes visually stunning, undeniably unique, and impossible to replicate, which is exactly what ultra-high-end collectors chase, because rarity isn't just about numbers, it's about the impossibility of repetition. And speaking of impossibility, one of the most explosive theories surrounding the 2014 penny is the idea of a mule error, where the obverse die from one coin is paired with the reverse die of another denomination or even another country. And while mule errors are extremely rare, they are not impossible. And if a 2014 penny were ever discovered with a mismatched reverse such as a Roosevelt dime, a Jefferson nickel, or an experimental test die never meant for circulation, the numismatic world would erupt overnight, because mule errors represent catastrophic system failures inside the mint, failures that bypass quality control at multiple levels. And when such a coin is authenticated, its value is determined not by price guides, but by private negotiations between elite collectors and institutions, which is how theoretical valuations can reach hundreds of millions of dollars. Especially if the coin is one of one. Another major factor involves die errors such as double dies, but not the common machine doubling seen on many modern coins, rather true hub doubling where the design itself is doubled during the creation of the die, resulting in strong, rounded, and clearly separated doubling on the date, mint mark, motto, or Lincoln's facial features. And if a 2014 penny exhibited a dramatic double die obverse combined with a double die reverse, the odds of survival would be astronomically low, and the demand would be overwhelming, especially if the doubling were visible to the naked eye and covered multiple design elements, because collectors know true double dies cannot be faked easily, and their legitimacy can be scientifically verified. Then there's the terrifying and valuable possibility of a cap die error, where a coin becomes stuck to a die and continues striking other planchets, gradually forming a cap. And if a 2014 penny were discovered as a late-stage cap die showing extreme distortion, thinning, and stretched metal with ghosted designs, it would already command massive value. But if that cap also displayed incorrect metal composition or a blockage impression, where one side shows a mirror image of the opposite design, the coin would transcend normal error classifications and enter legendary status. Another scenario that pushes valuations into uncharted territory is a bonded pair or chain strike error, where two or more planchets are struck together and fused due to immense pressure, creating a single mass with overlapping or merged designs. And if such a bonded error involved different metals or thicknesses, it would indicate a severe breakdown in the minting process, one that collectors would consider historically significant because modern mints are designed to prevent such chaos, and when chaos happens anyway, it tells a story of human and mechanical fallibility that fascinates numismatists, and beyond physical errors. Provenance plays a massive role in valuation, because if a 2014 penny with extreme errors were discovered in an unusual context, such as a sealed mint bag, an official mint facility clean-out, or a documented error release, its credibility and desirability would skyrocket, especially if the coin's discovery could be traced through credible witnesses, laboratory testing, and professional grading services. And when a grading service labels a coin as unique, experimental, or undocumented, it opens the door to private collectors who don't blink at 8 or 9-figure price tags. Because for them, owning something no one else on Earth can own is worth any cost, and that's where the $232 million figure enters the conversation, not as a guaranteed price, but as a theoretical ceiling for a coin that combines wrong metal, multiple strikes, major die errors, and absolute uniqueness, because in the world of elite collecting, price is driven by desire, not denomination. And desire skyrockets when a coin challenges everything we think we know about modern minting, and it's important to understand that many of these coins may still be undiscovered, sitting in jars, rolls, or collections where no one has weighed them, tested them, or examined them under magnification, because most people assume modern pennies are worthless. Yet history has proven that assumption wrong time and time again, from transitional metal errors to mule strikes to experimental planchets that slip through the cracks. And the 2014 penny represents a modern frontier where the next legendary discovery could happen at any moment, which is why collectors advise checking weight, color, thickness, magnetism, and strike alignment, because even subtle differences can point to something extraordinary. And while not every 2014 penny is worth millions, the possibility that one could be is what fuels the hunt, the excitement, and the obsession, and that's why stories like this matter. Because they remind us that value isn't always obvious, history isn't always old, and treasure doesn't always glitter. Sometimes it looks like a dirty penny you almost spent without looking. So if this story has opened your eyes to the hidden world of modern coin errors and the unbelievable potential locked inside everyday change, make sure you stay connected with the channel, keep learning, keep searching, and never underestimate the power of a single coin to change everything. Next, 1989 1-cent USA coin. The 1989 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors and sparked wild excitement across the numismatic world, with stories of values reaching an unbelievable $123 million. And while that number sounds almost impossible for a single penny, the journey behind why certain 1989 cents could command life-changing money is packed with minting mysteries, rare errors, overlooked production mistakes, and once-in-a-lifetime possibilities that make collectors search every jar roll. An inherited collection with fresh intensity, because the 1989 Lincoln cent sits at a unique crossroads in U.S. mint history where technology was changing, quality control was inconsistent, and millions of coins were struck at incredible speed, creating the perfect environment for rare and dramatic mistakes to slip through unnoticed. And when those mistakes combine with pristine condition, rare mint varieties, or experimental anomalies, the value can skyrocket into legendary territory. Starting with the fact that 1989 pennies were struck at multiple facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each with its own production quirks. And while billions of normal examples exist worth only face value, the true magic lies in the extreme outliers, such as double die obverse and reverse errors where the date, lettering, or Lincoln's portrait appears doubled due to misaligned dies during hubbing. And in the late 1980s, the mint was transitioning die production techniques, which created opportunities for strong double dies that were sometimes subtle and sometimes jaw-dropping, with dramatic separation visible even without magnification, and a bold 1989 double die with strong spread on the date and inscriptions in near-perfect condition would already be worth tens or hundreds of thousands. But when paired with additional anomalies such as off-metal strikes or transitional planchet errors, the value jumps exponentially, because transitional errors are among the most coveted in all of numismatics. And 1989 is especially intriguing due to ongoing experimentation with metal compositions and leftover planchets from prior or future years accidentally entering the production line, meaning a 1989 cent struck on the wrong planchet, such as a bronze blank intended for earlier issues, or a foreign planchet not meant for U.S. coinage at all, could weigh differently, ring differently, and instantly become a unique mint blunder. And uniqueness is what fuels record-breaking auction results, because when there is only one known example, or just a tiny handful, competition among elite collectors can drive prices into the millions, especially when the coin is authenticated by top grading services and preserved in flawless or near-flawless condition. And condition itself is another massive factor because most pennies are abused in circulation. But a 1989 error cent that somehow avoided scratches, wear, and corrosion and retained full mint luster could be graded at the very top of the scale, and top population coins have historically rewritten price guides, as collectors are not just buying metal but bragging rights and historical significance. And beyond doubled dies and wrong planchets, the 1989 cent is also notorious among error specialists for off-center strikes where the design is dramatically misaligned, sometimes missing portions of the date or Lincoln's portrait while still retaining full details on the visible area. And if the date remains readable and the strike is extreme yet visually appealing, such coins can be immensely valuable, especially when combined with a broad strike error where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar, resulting in a stretched and distorted appearance that tells the story of a mechanical failure frozen in copper. And speaking of copper, another layer of intrigue comes from the metal itself, because by 1989 the mint was well into zinc core cents with thin copper plating, but errors where the plating failed, peeled, or was improperly bonded created exposed zinc cores or bubbling surfaces that are visually striking and historically significant. And while minor plating issues are common, extreme examples where the plating is missing entirely or bonded incorrectly across large areas can command serious premiums, particularly when preserved in uncirculated condition. And then there are the mysterious no mint mark and repunched mint mark varieties, where mint marks were added to dies by hand during this era, and slight shifts or multiple impressions could create rare varieties that only eagle-eye collectors notice. And some 1989 cents show unusual mint mark placement or distortion that has sparked debate and research. And when a variety is officially recognized and cataloged, its value can explode overnight, because suddenly the collecting community has a new target to chase. And scarcity meets demand in a powerful way, and we cannot ignore die cracks, cuds, and retained cuds, which occur when a die begins to fail and portions break away, leaving raised blobs or missing sections in the design. And while small cracks are common, massive die breaks that dramatically alter the coin's appearance are far rarer. And a spectacular cut on a 1989 cent that engulfs lettering or parts of Lincoln's portrait can transform an otherwise ordinary penny into a six-figure or higher rarity depending on severity and condition. And when such a coin is paired with historical documentation or is the finest known example, it becomes the kind of piece that museum curators and billionaire collectors quietly pursue, pushing values into mind-bending territory. And this is where the mythic $123 million valuation enters the conversation, not as the price of an average error, but as a hypothetical ceiling for the most perfect storm scenario imaginable. A unique 1989 cent with multiple dramatic errors, flawless preservation, undeniable authenticity, and a story that captivates the collecting world, because at that level buyers are not just purchasing a coin, they are securing a piece of American minting history that may never be replicated. And history has shown that when rarity, condition, and narrative align, price records can fall in astonishing ways, just as rare stamps, misprinted currency, and one-of-a-kind pattern coins have sold for fortunes far beyond their material worth. And another fascinating angle is the possibility of Neal errors, where mismatched dies from different denominations or years are accidentally paired together. And while no widely confirmed 1989 Neal has surfaced publicly, the theoretical existence of such an error keeps collectors searching, because if discovered, it would instantly become one of the most important mint errors ever found, likely commanding a price that defies conventional logic. And even subtle anomalies such as rotated dies, where the obverse and reverse are misaligned, or die clashes, where the dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions on the coin, add layers of desirability that advanced collectors pay premiums for, especially when the clash marks are bold and clearly visible. And as coins age, provenance becomes another powerful driver of value, because a 1989 error cent discovered in an old mint bag, an estate collection, or a historically significant hoard adds credibility and romance to the piece. And when that story is documented and verified, it becomes part of the coin's identity, making it more than just a metal disc but a narrative artifact. And in high-end auctions, narrative sells just as much as rarity. And all of this underscores why collectors are encouraged to examine every 1989 penny carefully, weighing them, inspecting them under magnification, and comparing them to known varieties. Because history has proven again and again that some of the most valuable coins ever sold were once dismissed as odd or damaged until the right expert recognized their true nature. And while not every 1989 cent will make you rich, the possibility that one extraordinary example could exist, hiding in plain sight, fuels the passion and excitement of coin hunting. And that is why stories of 8-figure or 9-figure pennies continue to inspire both seasoned numismatists and newcomers alike, reminding us that even in the modern era, with advanced technology and strict controls, the mint is still run by humans and machines capable of mistakes. And those mistakes are exactly what transform everyday money into legendary treasures, making the humble 1989 1-cent coin a symbol of hope, curiosity, and the thrilling idea that something worth only a penny today could one day be valued among the most expensive collectibles on earth. Next, 1968 1-cent USA coin. Thank you for being here as we dive into one of the most fascinating, controversial, and mind-blowing stories in modern coin collecting history, a story that proves extraordinary fortunes can sometimes hide in the smallest and most ordinary objects. Because today, we are exploring the legendary 1968 1-cent, a humble Lincoln penny that many experts believe could reach an astonishing value of $52 million due to a combination of rare errors, minting mistakes, unusual production circumstances, and once-in-a-lifetime possibilities that push this coin into the realm of numismatic legend. And as you listen closely, you might realize that coins just like this may still be sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, and collections across the world, waiting for the right set of eyes to recognize their true potential. Because the 1968 penny was produced during a highly turbulent era at the United States Mint, when demand for coins was exploding, production speeds were pushed to their limits, and quality control was often compromised in ways that allowed spectacular mistakes to slip through. And this particular year holds a unique place in history because it came right after the major transition away from silver in circulating coinage, during a time when the Denver Mint was striking massive quantities of cents using copper alloy planchets that varied subtly in composition, thickness, and hardness, all of which created the perfect environment for dramatic errors. And when we talk about a potential $52 million valuation, we are not talking about an ordinary circulated penny with a bit of wear, but rather a hypothetical perfect storm example that combines multiple extreme errors on a single coin, each one rare on its own, but exponentially more valuable when found together. Starting with one of the most famous and valuable possibilities known as a transitional planchet error, because while 1968 cents were supposed to be struck on standard bronze planchets composed primarily of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc, there is strong speculation among specialists that experimental or leftover planchets of slightly different compositions were still present in mint facilities. And if a 1968 D cent were struck on an off-metal planchet, such as one intended for a different denomination or even an experimental alloy that was never officially released, the value would instantly skyrocket into the millions, especially if metallurgical testing confirmed that the metal composition does not match any known regular issue. And this is just the beginning, because another major factor that could elevate a 1968 D penny into legendary status is a dramatic double die error, and not just a minor doubling visible under magnification, but a bold, visible double die obverse or reverse showing strong separation on Lincoln's portrait, the date, the word liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust," and such doubling would need to be the result of a misaligned die hubbing process, where the die received multiple impressions that were not properly aligned, creating a coin that looks almost like two designs layered on top of each other. And when this kind of doubling is paired with pristine condition and additional errors, collectors and investors begin to treat the coin as a unique artifact rather than a simple mint mistake, pushing prices into unprecedented territory, especially because major double die varieties from other years have already sold for 6 and 7 figures, and the next layer of value comes from the Denver mint mark itself, because the D mint mark in 1968 was still hand-punched into working dies rather than being integrated into the die design, meaning that misplaced mint marks, repunched mint marks, tilted mint marks, and even doubled mint marks were possible. And if a 1968 D cent displayed an extreme repunched D, or a mint mark punched over another mint mark, or in an abnormal position combined with other major errors, it would represent a level of rarity that few collectors will ever encounter in their lifetime. And then there is the possibility of a dramatic strike error, such as a broad strike where the coin was struck without a retaining collar, allowing the metal to spread outward and distort the design, or an off-center strike where a significant portion of the design is missing while still retaining a visible date and mint mark. Because without those key identifiers, the coin loses much of its collectible appeal. But when a 1968 D cent shows a perfectly readable date and mint mark while being struck far off-center, collectors see it as the best of both worlds, a visually stunning error with full historical attribution. And such coins already command huge premiums even without additional factors. And now imagine layering that with a wrong planchet error where the coin weighs significantly more or less than it should, or has a different color and sound when dropped, indicating an entirely different metal composition, and suddenly you have a specimen that could become the centerpiece of major auction houses, because error coins of this magnitude are often treated like fine art rather than currency, with bidding wars driven by wealthy collectors, investors, and museums who want to own a piece of numismatic history that may never appear again. And another critical component in the $52 million valuation scenario is condition, because even the rarest error coin loses a significant portion of its value if it is heavily worn, damaged, or improperly cleaned. But if a 1968 D penny with all these extraordinary features were discovered in near perfect mint state condition, showing original luster, sharp details, and no signs of circulation, it would suggest that the coin somehow escaped into the world directly from the mint and was preserved almost immediately, which raises fascinating questions about how many other unseen treasures may have followed similar paths. And then there is the possibility of a dramatic die break or cut error, where a portion of the die cracked or broke away, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin that disrupts the design. And while minor die breaks are relatively common, a massive cut that removes a significant part of the design, while still leaving key elements visible, is extremely rare and highly sought after. And when combined with double dies, off-metal strikes, and mint mark anomalies, the result is a coin that defies conventional classification and becomes a category unto itself. And one of the most intriguing possibilities discussed among advanced collectors is the idea of a mule error involving a mismatched obverse and reverse, where the obverse die from one year or type is paired with a reverse die from another, creating a coin that should not exist according to official mint records. And although confirmed mule cents from this era are exceptionally rare, the discovery of one would send shockwaves through the numismatic community and could easily justify a multi-million-dollar valuation, particularly if the coin is authenticated by top grading services and backed by extensive documentation and expert consensus. And speaking of authentication, the role of professional grading cannot be overstated, because a coin rumored to be worth $52 million would undergo the most rigorous examination imaginable, including microscopic analysis, metallurgical testing, die state comparison, and historical research, all designed to eliminate any possibility of forgery or post-mint alteration. And once a coin passes these tests and is encapsulated with a detailed description of its errors and condition, it effectively becomes a certified artifact with a pedigree that can be traced through auctions, collections, and publications. And another layer of value comes from the historical context of 1968 itself, a year marked by social upheaval, political change, and rapid transformation in American society, and coins from this era carry a certain symbolic weight that resonates with collectors who see them as tangible links to a pivotal moment in history. And when a coin from such a year also happens to be an unprecedented error specimen, it transcends its original function and becomes a storytelling object that captures imagination as much as wealth. And the idea that such a coin could still be undiscovered adds to its mystique, because millions of 1968 D cents were produced, and while most are worth only face value or a small premium, the sheer volume of surviving coins means that extraordinary errors could still be hiding in plain sight, misidentified as ordinary pennies by people unaware of their significance. And this possibility fuels the passion of collectors, who meticulously examine every coin they encounter, searching for subtle clues like unusual weight, strange coloration, misaligned designs, or doubling that hints at something far more valuable. And it is important to understand that the $52 million figure represents the upper extreme of what could be achieved under perfect circumstances, including the presence of multiple rare errors on a single coin, pristine condition, strong market demand, and a competitive auction environment where wealthy bidders are determined to secure ownership at almost any cost. And while not every 1968 D penny will reach such heights, the existence of even one example that does would forever change how this coin is perceived and studied, influencing price guides, research publications, and collector behavior for generations. And as stories of record-breaking sales spread through media and online platforms, they inspire new audiences to take an interest in coin collecting, bringing fresh energy and investment into the hobby, which in turn drives values higher for rare and significant pieces. And this feedback loop is one of the reasons why legendary coins continue to break records decade after decade, and the 1968 D1 cent, with its combination of historical timing, production quirks, and error potential, stands as a perfect candidate for such a legend, because it represents the idea that even in an era of mass production and modern technology, human error and mechanical imperfections can still create objects of extraordinary rarity and value. And when collectors imagine finding a penny worth $52 million, they are not just dreaming of wealth, but of discovery, recognition, and the thrill of uncovering something that rewrites what we thought we knew about everyday objects. And that is why this coin continues to fascinate experts and beginners alike, because it reminds us that history is not only found in museums and textbooks, but also in our pockets, our homes, and the forgotten corners of our lives, waiting patiently for someone to look closely enough to see its true worth. And as you reflect on the story of the 1968 D penny, consider the countless coins that pass through your hands without a second glance, because among them could be an overlooked treasure shaped by a split-second mistake at the mint more than half a century ago, a mistake that transformed a simple 1-cent piece into a potential multi-million-dollar marvel, and that possibility alone is enough to keep collectors searching, learning, and believing that the next great discovery is always just one coin away. Next, 1992 D1-cent USA coin. Get ready to dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable coin stories in modern American numismatic history, because today we are talking about a humble copper-plated zinc coin that most people overlook every single day, the 1992 D1-cent, a penny that on its face looks ordinary, spins like pocket change, and is often tossed aside without a second thought, yet under the right circumstances, with the right combination of minting errors, mistakes, transitional anomalies, and extraordinary possibilities, has been rumored, speculated, and passionately debated among collectors as being worth as much as $35 million. And whether you are a seasoned coin hunter, a casual collector, or someone who simply enjoys the thrill of hidden treasure stories, this is a journey that will completely change the way you look at pennies forever. Because the story of the 1992 D1-cent is not about a single error alone, but about a perfect storm of minting technology. Changes, die varieties, quality control lapses, material transitions, and microscopic details that only the sharpest eyes and most persistent searchers ever notice. And it all begins with the era itself, the early 1990s. A time when the United States Mint was pushing massive production numbers to keep up with circulation demand while also dealing with aging equipment, evolving standards, and constant pressure to reduce costs. And the Denver Mint in 1992 was striking billions of Lincoln Memorial cents, most of them on copper-plated zinc planchets introduced a decade earlier. Yet even in this standardized process, the possibility for extraordinary mistakes remained very real, and those mistakes are exactly what make certain examples of the 1992 D-cent potentially worth life-changing money, starting with one of the most important and legendary aspects tied to this date, the close AM and wide AM reverse design confusion, which by itself has already produced some of the most valuable Lincoln Memorial cents ever known. Because in 1992 the intended reverse for circulation strikes was the close AM variety, where the letters A and M in the word America are nearly touching, while the wide AM reverse was supposed to be reserved for proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint. Yet, history has shown us that dies do not always stay where they are supposed to, and mistakes in die preparation, shipment, or usage can lead to proof reverse dies being used accidentally for circulation strikes. And while the famous 1992 Philadelphia closed-date wide AM cent is already legendary, collectors have long speculated and searched for a 1992 D wide AM cent, a coin that if authenticated would instantly become one of the rarest modern pennies in existence, and the mere possibility of such a coin fuels the $35 million valuation. Because rarity in numismatics is not just about age, but about survival numbers. And if a 1992 D wide AM exists, it could very well be a one-of-one, or one-of-two discovery, pushing its value into a realm few modern coins ever reach. But that is only the beginning, because beyond the reverse design anomaly, the 1992 D cent is also a candidate for transitional metal errors that could multiply its worth beyond imagination, including the possibility of being struck on the wrong planchet, such as a bronze planchet instead of the standard copper-plated zinc. And while bronze cents were officially discontinued after 1982, except for a few transitional errors, history has proven that leftover planchets and accidental feed errors can and do happen, and a genuine 1992 D cent struck on a solid bronze planchet would immediately place itself among the most important error coins ever discovered, especially if its weight, composition, and metallurgical analysis confirmed it beyond doubt. And collectors know that transitional errors from metal changes are among the most valuable coins in existence, as seen with the famous 1943 bronze cent and 1944 steel cent, and applying that precedent to a 1992 D bronze cent opens the door to valuations in the tens of millions, especially if combined with other anomalies like die doubling or misalignment. And speaking of doubling, doubled die errors are another critical factor in the 1992 D-cent mystery, because doubled dies occur during the hubbing process, when the die receives multiple impressions that are misaligned, resulting in doubling that is part of the die itself and appears consistently on every coin struck from that die, and a strong doubled die obverse or reverse on a 1992 D-cent, particularly one affecting the date, the word Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the memorial columns and lettering, would dramatically increase value. And if such a doubled die were dramatic, unlisted, and extremely rare, it could become a centerpiece variety worth millions, especially when combined with other errors, because the numismatic market places extraordinary premiums on unique combinations of errors that were never intended to exist together. And then there are off-metal errors that go beyond bronze, including the remote but tantalizing possibility of a 1992 D-cent struck on a foreign planchet, such as aluminum, brass, or even experimental alloys that were present in the mint at the time for testing or other denominations. And while these errors are exceedingly rare, documented cases exist across U.S. coinage history, and when they occur on a common denomination like the cent, the contrast between face value and realized value becomes staggering, and a confirmed off-metal 1992 D-cent, especially one with a documented chain of custody and third-party grading, could command astronomical prices at auction due to its uniqueness and the sheer fascination it generates. And that fascination only grows when you consider striking errors such as multiple strikes, broad strikes, or strike-throughs, where foreign material interferes with the strike and leaves dramatic impressions on the coin, because while many minor strike-throughs are relatively common, an extreme strike-through combined with a major variety like a wide AM reverse or a wrong planchet could create a once-in-a-lifetime specimen that collectors and museums alike would compete fiercely to own. And then there is the topic of die caps and brockages, errors where coins stick to dies and create mirror image impressions or cap-like shapes. And while these are usually caught quickly by mint workers, a 1992 D-cent showing a dramatic and intact die cap or full brockage could add another layer of rarity and intrigue, especially if it survives circulation unnoticed. And beyond physical errors, there is also the realm of mint mark anomalies, because the D mint mark on Denver cents during this period was still punched into the die by hand, meaning repunched mint marks, tilted mint marks, or even doubled mint marks were possible. And while many RPMs are relatively minor, a dramatic and unique mint mark error on a 1992 D-cent could become a key variety in its own right. And when collectors talk about a $35 million penny, they are often imagining not just one error, but a convergence of several, such as a wide AM reverse, struck on a bronze planchet, with a doubled die obverse and an unusual mint mark anomaly, a combination so improbable that it borders on miraculous. Yet numismatic history has taught us that miracles do occasionally occur, and the excitement surrounding such possibilities keeps collectors searching through rolls, bags, and collections year after year, and condition also plays a massive role in this valuation discussion, because even the rarest error loses significant value if it is damaged, corroded, or excessively worn, whereas a high-grade example with full original luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks can multiply its value many times over. And if a hypothetical $35,001,992 D-cent were discovered in near mint or mint state condition, the shockwaves through the collecting world would be immense, drawing mainstream media attention and cementing its place as one of the most valuable coins ever found in pocket change. And authentication would be absolutely critical in such a case, because the numismatic market demands rigorous verification through weight analysis, metal composition testing, die study, and certification by top grading services, and only through that process could such a coin achieve its full potential value. But even the rumors and speculative hunt surrounding the 1992 D-cent have value of their own, because they inspire new generations of collectors to look closer, learn more, and appreciate the complex process behind coin production. And the story does not end with known errors alone, because there are also theoretical possibilities that collectors discuss endlessly, such as a 1992 cent struck with a mule error pairing the wrong obverse or reverse design, or a coin struck with a missing layer or split planchet that reveals the inner zinc core in dramatic fashion. And while some of these errors are more common than others, extreme examples with clean, eye-catching appearances can still command significant premiums, and when paired with a key date or major variety, they become even more desirable. And all of this feeds into the legend of the 1992 penny, a coin that represents the idea that even in modern times, with advanced technology and quality control, the minting process is still vulnerable to human error, mechanical failure, and unexpected anomalies. And that vulnerability is exactly what creates opportunity for collectors, because every penny has a story, but only a few have the potential to rewrite numismatic history. And the thought that a coin minted within the lifetime of many people alive today could be worth $35 million challenges our assumptions about value, rarity, and the hidden treasures that may still be waiting to be found. And as you continue your own coin hunting journey, the lesson of the 1992 cent is clear. Never assume a coin is ordinary just because it is modern. Never dismiss a penny because it looks common at first glance. And never stop learning about the details that separate the mundane from the extraordinary, because somewhere out there, perhaps still sitting unnoticed in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten roll, could be a 1992 cent with the right combination of errors, mistakes, and possibilities that transforms it from a single cent into a $35 million legend. And that possibility is what makes coin collecting not just a hobby, but a lifelong adventure filled with mystery, discovery, and the thrill of the hunt. Next, 1972 1 cent USA coin. The place where ordinary pocket change turns into extraordinary treasure stories. And today I want to welcome every collector, history lover, and dreamer who has ever looked at a simple penny and wondered if it could change their life. Because in this episode, we are diving deep into one of the most mysterious and talked about Lincoln cents of all time, the 1972 South 1 center coin. A penny that on the surface looks modest and familiar, but under the right circumstances has been rumored, speculated, and passionately discussed as being worth up to $32 million due to a powerful combination of minting errors, production mistakes, unusual circumstances at the San Francisco Mint, collector psychology, and the extreme rarity that can be created when multiple anomalies collide in a single small copper coin. And as we explore this story, imagine holding a cent that costs just 1 penny to make yet carries a legend built on mistakes that transformed it into a symbol of numismatic possibility, because the early 1970s were a fascinating period for United States coinage. A time when the country was transitioning through economic pressure, rising metal costs, and changing mint practices, and the San Francisco Mint in particular was operating in a unique role, producing primarily proof coinage intended for collectors rather than circulation, which already places the 1972 cent in a special category, since proof cents are struck with polished dies, carefully prepared planchets, and higher striking pressure to produce sharp details and mirrored fields. But here is where the story becomes extraordinary, because in 1972 something went wrong, or rather several things may have gone wrong, and when errors occur on proof coins, they are exponentially rarer than on business strikes, because proof production is supposed to be slow, controlled, and inspected, meaning that any mistake that escapes quality control becomes a numismatic anomaly of the highest order. And one of the most famous and documented error types associated with 1972 cents is the double die obverse, where the date and lettering show strong doubling due to misalignment during the die creation process. But when collectors discuss a potential $32 million valuation, they are not talking about a normal double die that you might see sell for thousands or even tens of thousands. They are talking about the hypothetical convergence of multiple extreme errors on a proof strike from San Francisco, such as a dramatic double die combined with a deep off-metal strike, or a transitional planchet error, or even a wrong metal composition that should never have been used for cents at all, because during this era, the mint was experimenting with different alloys and production techniques, especially as copper prices were climbing. And there has long been speculation within advanced collector circles that a small number of experimental or test planchets may have accidentally been fed into proof presses, creating coins that technically should not exist. And when something should not exist yet does, its value is no longer tied to face value or even normal market logic. It becomes tied to mythology, uniqueness, and the willingness of elite collectors and institutions to compete for ownership. And this is where the 1972 South 1 Center enters legendary territory. Because imagine a proof Lincoln cent struck not on the standard bronze alloy but on a silver or aluminum planchet, or even a foreign alloy intended for another denomination, combined with a strong double die obverse and possibly a rotated die reverse, all preserved in near-perfect proof condition with deep cameo contrast. Such a coin would not just be rare, it would be unique, a one-of-one artifact representing a breakdown in one of the most controlled minting environments in the world. And uniqueness is the foundation of million-dollar coins, because when there is only one known example, the market becomes whatever the richest and most determined collector is willing to pay, and history has shown us that collectors have paid staggering sums for coins that tell a powerful story, like the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1913 Liberty Nickel, or the 1943 Copper Cent, all of which exist because of mistakes, exceptions, or transitional moments. And the 1972 cent fits perfectly into that lineage if the right error combination exists. And another possibility that fuels the $32 million narrative is the concept of a mule error, where the obverse and reverse dies are mismatched, such as a Lincoln obverse paired with a reverse intended for another denomination or design, something that should never happen, but has occurred in rare documented cases. And a proof mule would be virtually priceless because it would indicate a catastrophic oversight in die installation at the San Francisco Mint. And while no publicly confirmed example of such a mule has been widely exhibited, advanced collectors know that not all discoveries are immediately shared. Some remain hidden in private collections, bank vaults, or estates, waiting decades before surfacing, and this secrecy is part of what keeps the legend alive. Because numismatics is full of coins that were once considered rumors until someone finally brought one to a grading service, and the grading process itself plays a crucial role in value. Because for a 1972 cent to reach an astronomical valuation, it would need to be authenticated by a top-tier grading company, assigned a high-proof grade, and verified as genuine in every respect, including metallurgical analysis to confirm composition, die study to document doubling or mismatches, and provenance research to establish its history. And when such documentation is complete, the coin becomes more than metal, it becomes a certified historical object. And collectors do not just buy coins, they buy stories, and the story of a proof cent that escaped the San Francisco Mint with impossible characteristics is one that resonates deeply, especially in an era where modern collectors are increasingly drawn to error coins because they represent individuality in a mass-produced world. And another layer of value comes from the psychological impact of the Lincoln cent itself, because Lincoln pennies are among the most widely collected coins in the United States, familiar to generations. Meaning that when a Lincoln cent becomes a record-setting rarity, it captures public imagination far more than an obscure gold pattern or experimental token, and this broad appeal expands the potential buyer pool, including not just traditional numismatists but investors, museums, and even cultural institutions, all of which can drive prices higher in competitive auctions. And auction dynamics are crucial to understanding how a coin could reach $32 million. Because prices are not set by guides, they are set by bidding wars, and when two or more bidders with deep pockets decide that owning a unique 1972 South Error Center is worth any cost, the numbers can escalate rapidly, especially if the coin is marketed as the only known example, the holy grail of modern Lincoln sense, and this is why rumors and possibilities carry so much weight in numismatic culture, because even the potential existence of such a coin encourages collectors to search, examine, and dream. And thousands of 1972's proof sets have been broken apart over the years, with collectors examining pennies under microscopes, looking for doubling, strange textures, unusual weights, or magnetic properties, because sometimes the difference between a $10 coin and a $1 million coin is invisible to the naked eye, requiring precise measurement and expert analysis, and the mistakes that could make a 1972's cent reach legendary value include extreme hub doubling far beyond the known doubled die varieties, where the date and liberty appear almost shadowed or separated, misaligned. Planchets that cause partial strikes combined with full-proof surfaces, clipped planchets with curved missing sections that reveal internal metal flow lines, broad strikes where the coin expands beyond its normal diameter while retaining proof quality, and even struck-through errors where foreign material like cloth, grease, or metal shavings interfered with the strike, leaving permanent impressions. And while any one of these errors can be valuable on its own, the true jackpot scenario involves multiple errors occurring simultaneously, which is statistically improbable but not impossible, especially during periods of high production stress or equipment transition, and the San Francisco Mint in the early 1970s was adapting to new demands, new technologies, and evolving quality standards, creating a fertile environment for rare mistakes. And another fascinating aspect is the role of human error, because despite automation, coin production still involves people, and a single lapse in attention, a misloaded planchet bin, or an improperly installed die can create a coin that defies expectations. And once such a coin enters circulation through proof set distribution, it becomes almost impossible to trace, which is why so many legendary coins remain undiscovered for decades, sometimes surfacing in estate sales, old collections, or even inherited boxes of coins that sat untouched for years. And this is what keeps the dream alive for collectors watching this channel right now, because the idea that a $32 million penny could be hiding in plain sight is intoxicating. And even if the absolute top valuation represents an extreme upper limit driven by speculation and hypothetical uniqueness, there is no denying that verified 1972's error cents can command substantial premiums, especially when they exhibit strong visual impact and impeccable preservation. And preservation is key, because proof coins are susceptible to damage, spotting, and environmental exposure, meaning that a pristine example is far rarer than a flawed one. And collectors place enormous value on originality, deep mirrored fields, frosted devices, and the absence of cleaning or tampering, because authenticity is sacred in numismatics, and any sign of alteration can destroy value instantly, which is why professional grading and authentication are non-negotiable for coins of this caliber. And as we consider the $32 million figure, it is important to understand that such valuations are not assigned casually. They emerge from a combination of rarity, demand, narrative, and timing. Because markets change, tastes evolve, and a coin that captures the imagination at the right moment can achieve prices that seem unbelievable in hindsight. And the modern era of social media, online auctions, and global collector communities has amplified this effect, allowing stories of rare coins to spread instantly and attract international attention, which means that a discovery today can reach a worldwide audience within hours, dramatically increasing competitive interest. And this is why channels like the Coins Explorer play a vital role, educating, inspiring, and connecting collectors, helping them understand what to look for and why it matters, because knowledge is the most valuable tool in coin collecting. And the story of the 1972 South One Center is ultimately a story about possibility, about how mistakes can become masterpieces, how something small can become something monumental, and how history, chance, and human curiosity intersect in the most unexpected ways. And while not every 1972 penny will be worth millions, the mere existence of that possibility transforms the act of searching into an adventure, reminding us that within the humble copper surfaces of a 1-cent coin lies the potential for discovery, excitement, and perhaps even life-changing value. And as long as collectors continue to examine, question, and dream, the legend of the 1972 penny and its potential $32 million destiny will continue to inspire the world of numismatics. Next, 2003 D1 USA coin. Thank you for being here today on the channel where hidden treasures, pocket change miracles, and unbelievable coin stories come alive. And right now, I want you to imagine holding a simple copper-colored penny in your hand, a coin you might normally ignore or toss into a jar, because today we are diving deep into one of the most astonishing modern coin mysteries ever discussed. The incredible story of how a 2003 D1 coin, a penny struck at the Denver Mint, could potentially be worth an unbelievable $22 million due to rare errors, extraordinary minting mistakes, unusual production circumstances, and mind-blowing possibilities that continue to shock collectors, dealers, and everyday people alike. And as we explore this story together, you'll understand why experts say that sometimes the most valuable treasures in history don't come from ancient times or gold hoards, but from small modern mistakes hiding in plain sight. Because the year 2003 might seem recent, almost ordinary, yet it sits at a fascinating crossroads in United States coin production when technology, materials, and minting speed collided in ways that created opportunities for errors that should never have happened. And this is where the legend of the 2003 D1 begins, as the Denver Mint was operating at extremely high capacity during this period, producing billions of Lincoln cents to meet circulation demand. And when production volume rises that high, quality control can falter in rare and dramatic ways, allowing flawed planchets, misaligned dies, transitional metal errors, and even experimental or leftover materials to slip through unnoticed, which is exactly what fuels the possibility of a single penny reaching an astronomical valuation. Because collectors don't pay millions for ordinary coins, they pay for impossibilities, for pieces that defy mint records, challenge official explanations, and rewrite what we think we know about modern coinage. And one of the most powerful possibilities surrounding the 2003 D-cent involves wrong planchet errors, where a coin is struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination or composition. And during the early 2000s, the U.S. Mint was still dealing with complex inventory systems involving copper-plated zinc planchets, test blanks, foreign planchets produced under contract, and leftover experimental metals from prior research. And if a Denver Mint press accidentally struck a Lincoln cent design onto a planchet not meant for cents at all, such as a bronze alloy blank, a foreign coin blank, or even a test alloy never intended for circulation, that single coin would instantly become one of the rarest modern mint errors known. And rarity is the foundation of extreme value, because collectors will pay extraordinary sums for coins that are unique or nearly unique, especially when the error is dramatic, visually obvious, and scientifically verifiable through metallurgical testing. And another breathtaking possibility involves double denomination errors, where a coin already struck as one denomination is later struck again with a different design. And although these are incredibly rare, they are not impossible, especially during high-speed production when coins can become lodged in machinery and later re-enter the striking process. And if a 2003 D-cent somehow received impressions from another denomination die or partial design elements inconsistent with a normal penny, it would immediately elevate the coin into legendary status, particularly if the error was clear enough to authenticate beyond doubt. And authentication is crucial because the difference between a $1,000 curiosity and a multi-million-dollar artifact often lies in whether top grading services confirm the error as genuine and mint-made, and beyond wrong planchets and double strikes. One of the most talked about possibilities is the presence of transitional metal errors, which occur when a mint accidentally uses the wrong metal composition during a period of change or experimentation, and while the official transition from solid copper cents to copper-plated zinc occurred decades earlier, the mint has a long history of testing alternative alloys behind the scenes, especially during times of rising metal prices. And it is entirely plausible that experimental blanks or leftover test materials could have been present in mint facilities even years later. And if a 2003 cent were struck on a solid copper, brass, or exotic alloy planchet not authorized for circulation, its weight, density, and composition would stand out immediately under examination, and collectors know that coins like the 1943 bronze cent and the 1944 steel cent achieved legendary status precisely because they were never supposed to exist, yet a handful did. And those coins today are worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. So when people hear about a modern penny potentially worth $22 million, it's not pure fantasy. It's built on historical precedent because the mint has made mistakes before, and some of those mistakes slipped out unnoticed until years later, creating life-changing discoveries. And another extraordinary category of errors that could apply to the 2003 cent involves dramatic die errors, such as major off-center strikes combined with multiple strikes, rotated dies far beyond normal tolerances, or blockage errors where one coin impresses its design onto another, creating a mirrored or incuse image. And while minor off-center strikes are common and usually worth only modest premiums, extreme examples that involve multiple overlapping errors can reach astonishing values, especially if they are unique or represent the most severe example known for that year in mint. And imagine a 2003 penny struck far off-center, missing a significant portion of its design, then struck again, perhaps with a rotated die, and possibly combined with a clipped planchet, creating a visual anomaly that looks almost unreal. Such a coin would not just be collectible, it would be museum-worthy, because collectors are drawn to coins that visually tell a story of chaos inside the minting process, and the more layers of error present, the higher the value can climb. And when we talk about values in the millions, we are no longer discussing everyday collectors. We are talking about elite buyers, investors, museums, and institutions competing for ownership of a once-in-a-lifetime artifact, and that level of competition is what drives prices into the stratosphere. And one of the most controversial yet fascinating possibilities associated with the 2003 cent is the idea of a mule error, where two mismatched dies are paired together, such as a cent obverse with a reverse intended for a different denomination or even a different country. And while mule errors are extremely rare in modern U.S. coinage, they do exist, with famous examples like the Sacagawea dollar struck with a Washington quarter reverse. And if a 2003 penny were discovered with a mismatched reverse design, even partially, it would instantly become one of the most famous error coins of the 21st century. And fame matters because famous coins attract attention, media coverage, and intense demand, all of which fuel higher auction results and beyond physical errors. There is also the realm of documentation anomalies, where a coin's existence contradicts official mint records, and if evidence emerged that a particular type of 2003 cent should not exist according to production logs, yet a genuine example surfaced, it would raise serious questions about undisclosed minting activity, experimental runs, or undocumented production events, and collectors are fascinated by mysteries, especially when those mysteries involve government institutions, because unanswered questions add allure, and allure adds value, and one of the reasons modern error coins can sometimes surpass older coins in value is because they challenge the assumption that all valuable coins are ancient or historic, proving instead that rarity can occur at any time, even in an era of advanced technology, And this is why the idea of a $22,002,003 decent captures so much imagination, because it suggests that life-changing discoveries could still be hiding in circulation. In old jars, rolls from the bank, or forgotten collections. And another crucial factor that could elevate a coin's value to this level is condition, because a dramatic error preserved in near-perfect or mint-state condition is exponentially more valuable than one that is worn or damaged. And if a 2003D error sent with multiple rare characteristics were also found in pristine condition, with sharp details, original luster, and minimal handling marks, it would stand at the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatics, and grading services play a vital role here, because a top-tier grade combined with a spectacular error creates a perfect storm for record-breaking prices. And it's also important to understand the psychology of collectors, because high-end numismatics is driven not just by rarity, but by storytelling, and the story of a humble penny transforming into a multi-million-dollar artifact is incredibly powerful, especially when supported by science, authentication, and historical context. And this is why even the possibility of such a coin existing generates intense interest, because people dream of discovery, of finding something extraordinary where no one else was looking. And the 2003D cent sits at a point in history where enough time has passed for errors to surface, yet it is still recent enough that many coins remain unexamined, tucked away in everyday places. And another angle that adds to the valuation potential is the global collector market, because today's coin market is not limited to one country, and wealthy collectors from around the world actively compete for the rarest pieces. And when a coin achieves international recognition as a once-in-a-generation rarity, bidding wars can escalate far beyond initial estimates, pushing prices into territory that seems unbelievable to the average person, and we have seen this happen repeatedly with rare stamps, artworks, and historic artifacts, so it is not unreasonable to imagine a truly unique modern U.S. era coin achieving a valuation in the tens of millions if the right conditions are met, and those conditions include uniqueness, undeniable authenticity, extreme visual impact, compelling mystery, and strong market demand, all of which could theoretically converge in the case of a legendary 2003D cent. And as we consider all these possibilities together, from wrong planchets and transitional metals to dramatic die errors, mule pairings, and undocumented mint activity, it becomes clear why some experts and enthusiasts discuss values that sound almost unreal, because they are not valuing the penny as money, they are valuing it as an irreplaceable artifact, a tangible record of a moment when the minting process failed in a spectacular and fascinating way, and whether or not such a coin has already been found or remains hidden is part of the excitement, because numismatics is filled with stories of discoveries made decades after the fact, and that sense of possibility keeps collectors searching, examining, and learning, and it turns every ordinary-looking coin into a potential treasure. And that is why the story of the 2003 D1 cent potentially worth $22 million continues to captivate so many people, because it reminds us that history is not just something locked away in museums. It can be hiding in your pocket, your drawer, or your change jar, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely. And as long as errors can occur, as long as human systems remain imperfect, and as long as people value rarity and mystery, stories like this will continue to inspire collectors and dreamers alike, proving that even in the modern age, a simple penny can still carry the power to astonish the world. Last 1976 1 cent USA coin. Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and mysterious Lincoln cents ever discussed among collectors, a 1976 1 cent coin that under very specific circumstances has been rumored, theorized, and passionately debated as being worth up to $13 million, a number that sounds impossible for a penny yet becomes intriguing when you understand how minting errors, transitional mistakes, die varieties, experimental metals, and accidental anomalies can transform a common coin. into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, because 1976 was not just another year for the United States Mint but a period of intense production pressure, equipment wear, metal composition changes, and special commemorative focus tied to the bicentennial era. And all of these factors created the perfect environment for rare mistakes to slip through unnoticed. Mistakes that today fuel some of the most exciting hunts in modern coin collecting. And as we explore this 1976 cent story, we are not talking about an ordinary brown penny pulled from a roll. We are talking about the possibility of a cent that defies expectations, that challenges known records, and that could exist quietly in a jar, drawer, or inherited collection waiting for the right pair of eyes to recognize its importance. Because value in the coin world is not driven by age alone, but by rarity, condition, demand, and above all the uniqueness of the error, or anomaly, that sets one coin apart from billions of others. And the year 1976 is especially interesting because while most people focus on bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollars, the cent continued to be produced in massive quantities at multiple facilities using equipment that had already seen years of heavy use, and worn dies, misaligned presses, and rush quality control all increased the chance of dramatic minting errors, including off-metal strikes where a penny may have been struck on a wrong planchet, such as aluminum, bronze of an incorrect alloy, or even a leftover foreign blank. And if a genuine 1976 cent were discovered struck on an unauthorized metal such as aluminum or a transitional alloy not intended for circulation, that alone could place it among the most valuable error coins known, because history has shown us that experimental or forbidden compositions instantly ignite interest among top collectors and museums, especially when documentation is scarce and survival rates are near zero. And beyond metal composition there is the equally powerful realm of die errors, including doubled dies where the design appears doubled due to misalignment during die creation. And if a 1976 cent were found with a dramatic doubled die obverse showing strong doubling on the date, Liberty, or In God We Trust comparable or exceeding famous varieties, like the 1955 or 1969 as doubled dies, the value could skyrocket into the millions if the coin were unique or one of only a handful known, particularly if preserved in exceptional condition. Because rarity multiplied by condition is the core formula for extreme valuation. And then there are wrong date errors, where remnants of previous dates appear due to repunched or overdated dies. And although less common in the modern era, any clear evidence of a 1976 cent bearing traces of another date would immediately attract global attention. And we must also consider mint mark anomalies, even though most 1976 cents lack mint marks due to Philadelphia not using them at the time. A misplaced, doubled, or unusual mint mark on a coin that should not have one would represent a shocking deviation from standard production and could indicate either a mule error or an unauthorized die modification, both of which would push the coin into legendary status. And speaking of mule errors, one of the most fascinating possibilities that fuels the $13 million conversation is the idea of a mule coin where a cent obverse is paired with a reverse intended for another denomination or another year entirely, an error so rare that when documented examples appear they often redefine price records, because mules demonstrate a catastrophic breakdown in mint procedures, and collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums for physical proof that such an error escaped the mint. And alongside mules are brockages and cap dies, where coins are struck with impressions from other coins or repeatedly struck under abnormal conditions, creating distorted, layered, or incused designs that are visually dramatic and historically important. And if a 1976 cent were found exhibiting a full brockage combined with another major error such as an off-metal strike or double strike, the compound nature of the mistake would elevate it far beyond typical error coin values. And then we enter the realm of missing elements, such as missing letters, missing memorial steps, or missing entire design features caused by grease-filled dies or die breaks. And while minor examples are common, A major die break that removes large portions of the design and creates a unique appearance could transform an otherwise common cent into a standout rarity, particularly if the break occurred briefly before the die was retired, resulting in only a few examples escaping. And beyond production errors, there is the issue of extraordinary condition. Because a 1976 cent struck perfectly and preserved flawlessly in a top grade far beyond what is normally seen could itself become a record setter, especially if combined with any unusual characteristic, since condition rarity plays a massive role in valuation when survival rates are low for pristine examples. And it is important to understand that the $13 million figure is not casually assigned but represents a theoretical upper limit based on what could happen if multiple extreme factors align in one coin, such as an unauthorized composition, a unique mule pairing, a dramatic double die, and impeccable preservation, because the coin market has repeatedly shown that when a coin is truly unique and historically significant, prize ceilings vanish and auctions become battles of prestige as much as ownership. And in the modern era, with global participation, wealthy collectors, and institutional buyers, the right coin can achieve numbers once thought impossible. And the 1976 cent sits at an interesting crossroads, where it is old enough to have circulated widely yet modern enough that production records and anomalies can still be analyzed in detail, making any confirmed deviation from known standards extremely valuable. And this is why collectors are urged to examine their 1976 pennies closely, weighing them accurately to detect off-metal strikes, checking edges for unusual color or thickness, studying lettering under magnification for doubling, and comparing designs to known standards to spot mismatches or missing elements. Because history has proven that some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were found by ordinary people who took the time to look carefully. And while many claims of multi-million-dollar pennies turn out to be misunderstandings or altered coins, the possibility remains that genuine mint errors are still out there undiscovered, quietly waiting to be recognized, authenticated, and introduced to the world. And authentication is a crucial part of this journey because any coin suspected of being extraordinary must be examined by reputable grading services that can verify its composition, strike, and origin, as the market only assigns record-breaking values to coins with unquestionable legitimacy. And once certified, such a coin would not just be a collectible but a historical artifact representing a rare moment where human error intersected with industrial-scale production to create something never meant to exist. And that is ultimately why stories like the 1976 one set valued at $13 million captivate the imagination, because they remind us that value can hide in plain sight, that even the smallest denomination can carry enormous significance, and that the thrill of the hunt is as powerful as the reward itself. So whether you are a seasoned collector or someone just beginning to look at coins with curiosity, the lesson of the 1976 cent is to never underestimate what you might already own. Because within the vast sea of ordinary pennies, there may exist a single coin whose errors, mistakes, and improbable journey elevate it from one cent to a fortune, turning a humble piece of copper into a symbol of discovery, history, and the endless fascination of numismatics.